It's funny how people say I'm doing this or that video for views, when in reality, I only do my Mary Sue videos for views! Now I know I said in my last video that I would be going over Rey Palpatine next time, but I changed my mind. Instead, I'm gonna be going over the different levels to Mary Sue's, because I've been getting a lot of comments on all my Mary Sue videos saying, "By that logic, this or that guy would be a Mary Sue." Or, "That character isn't a Mary Sue, they did something terrible and I hate them for it. Therefore, they're not a Mary Sue." So before I get to Rey Palpatine, I decided to do a video describing what is a Mary Sue, the different levels to Mary Sue's, and also at the very end I'm going to give more detail on some of the arguments I made in my past Mary Sue videos. So there's really no dictionary definition for a Mary Sue, but everybody still uses the term. But what is a Mary Sue? Is it a self-insert character? No, I mean a lot of self-insert characters can be non-Mary Sues. Is it a character who's powerful? I would also disagree, cause I've never heard someone call fucking Broly a Mary Sue. Does it have to be a woman? I also disagree, cause you have people like Kirito who are absolutely god-tier Gary Stus. One thing I will say is that a Mary Sue or Gary Stu tends to be the main character. Not always, but it feels like they're the main character at least 90% of the time. Now I want to make something very clear, just because a character is a Mary Sue or Gary Stu, it doesn't automatically mean they're a bad character. If you want to like a Mary Sue or Gary Stu character, go for it, I won't stop ya! Fans are not at fault for liking a Gary Stu or Mary Sue characters, and the actors or actresses playing them are not at fault. It's the writers who are at fault! Now, just because I have my own definition of what is and isn't a Mary Sue doesn't mean you can't have your own definition, and you can totally disagree with me in the comments section if you want. Now, to me, the first level of being a Gary Stu or Mary Sue is the prodigy child. Broly falls into this category. He was born with a huge-ass power level, and it was over 9,000.
It's over 9,000!
Harry Potter falls into this category along with Naruto and Anakin Skywalker. Basically, any main character you can think of who's the chosen one or is from a shonen anime or fantasy series. But since this definition is so broad, I wouldn't describe any of these characters as Mary Sues. Well, maybe Harry Potter, but that's about it. I know I already pointed this out in my Mary Sues and Gary Stu's video, but Harry Potter is a lot more than just a chosen one. He was the only student to get his broom to fly to his hand. He's the youngest seeker ever. He has one of the 3 Deathly Hallows. He defeats a master wizard by touching him. And this is all just from the first movie. Basically, every single wizard is singing his praises as if he's the second coming of Wizard Jesus. And any wizard who doesn't like him is either evil or becomes evil later on. I feel like the only wizard who got to do anything else in that movie was Hermione. And that's it. And yes, I have read the book, and in the book she's a lot more useful than she was in the movie. Perhaps the best subversion of the trope of chosen one at birth I've ever seen in any movie ever was Mary and the Witch's Flower. The trailer tricked me into thinking she was this Mary Sue super powerful witch just because she found a dumb flower.
You're a once-in-a-century talent. A remarkable witch.
But then I actually watched the movie, and she almost loses her power immediately. Both the trailer and the first part of the movie tricked me into thinking this character was a Mary Sue, but then they actually had to use strategy and their wit to solve their problems, and I actually really liked that. The only thing I would change about the movie is I wish the grandma did something cool at the end, and that's about it. But now let's segue into level 2 Mary Sues, the Jerk Sue. The Jerk Sue is very unique compared to other Mary Sues, because they don't have to be the main character or super powerful. They just have to be an asshole, and all the other characters have to never call them out and let them get away with their terrible actions. And I can think of no better character for this than Amber from Invincible. Me, MisAnthro, and my roommate already did a pretty good video about this. And if you're a fan of Amber, my roommate makes a few arguments in favor of them. Also, side note, I've been noticing this really weird trend in YouTube comment sections where when someone argues in favor of something or someone everybody hates, they're immediately called biased. Guys, just so you know, when I'm having a well-rounded cast with some people attacking the character and some people defending the character, that is the opposite of bias. What people mean when they say this or that is bias, what they really mean is, OMG, this guy disagreed with my opinion, and my opinion is the popular one, therefore this person must be biased. Now, I did bring up Amber in my Too Many Mary Sues video, and a lot of people said, but I don't like her character, she's a terrible person. How can that be a Mary Sue? It's a Mary Sue when none of the cast are calling them out for their actions, and it makes them even more of a Mary Sue when literally Mark and all of their friends are agreeing with them. And also, the reason why a lot of Mary Sues tend to be women, and in recent years black, is so that the writer can say, haha, you're racist and sexist. Yeah, Amber was white in the comics, but she acted completely differently. I also talked about Black Panther being the first black Gary Stu ever in my Disney Sues video. The funny thing is with the whole claim of someone being racist and sexist is that it's not an argument. Let's say I put a picture of a cup on screen, and I say that's a cup. I could be worse than Hitler. That's my original character, he's like Hitler but a hillbilly. But at the end of the day, the cup is still a cup. It doesn't matter how bigoted I am. And don't get me wrong, I have some bigotry. I really can't stand those freaking Gundams. But anytime someone tries to say, the term Mary Sue is a sexist term, just never ever forget that that's not an argument. But would I call Amber a Mary Sue? The answer is no. She's unbelievably annoying, her character is written terribly, and I can't stand her and I really hope someone calls her out in season 2. But I wouldn't call her a Mary Sue. Maybe an asshole Sue, but not a Mary Sue. Another good example of this is Wanda from WandaVision, where one of the characters said to her in the last episode, wow, the people of this town you enslaved against their will never know how much you had to give up for them. Also, the person who said it was this black girl who Wanda enslaved, and I'm really happy with a black character telling a white character that they gave up a lot by no longer keeping them enslaved. Now let me tell you about a Mary Sue type character that almost everyone likes, the Villain Sue. Well, they're normally not liked by everyone, in fact it's usually the opposite. But if they are liked by everyone, eventually the main character pulls off the mask and everybody can see just how terrible of a person they really are. Villains are almost always one of the most powerful characters in their verse, but that's so the main character can have something to overcome. My favorite character of all time could be considered a Villain Sue, Lex Luthor from Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. But, like I said earlier, I don't care if he's a Sue or not, I like his character nonetheless. Burn! And again, Villain Sues tend to make the best Sues of all time. But what is the third and highest level to someone being a Mary Sue? Being good at everything. Now I talked about this a little in my Mary Sue video I did with Techno, but there's this thing called the anti-Sue, where they just give the character one minor flaw so people won't call the character a Mary Sue. Such as making a character being bad at cooking. A character doesn't have to be 102% perfect to be considered a Mary Sue, they just have to be close to perfection. Yeah, it's true that Kirito from Sword Art Online is not 100% perfect, he did have to play the game a lot before he got as good as he was, but he's still the most powerful character in the series, gets a giant harem. In the second part, he joins a fairy game that he never played and beats the best player in just a few days. It doesn't add anything to the story, but he did it because he's Kirito, goddammit. Now, as I said before, a high power level doesn't automatically make someone a Mary Sue, but if their power level is so much higher than everybody else's, then it makes them much more closer to being a Mary Sue. But a Mary Sue or Gary Stu character has to be someone that, you know, people actually want to be. Take SCP-682 for example. He has a pretty high damn power level. But does anybody actually want to be SCP-682? I guess a few people, but they're weird. Superman also has a disgustingly high power level and he's borderline perfect. And plenty of people have considered Superman to be a Gary Stu. But do I consider him to be a Gary Stu? Well, I certainly think he ticks off a lot of the boxes and he's definitely close to one. And if someone wants to consider him to be a Gary Stu, I won't argue with them. But there is one reason why I don't consider Superman to be a Gary Stu, and that's no one actually wants to be him. Yeah, of course kids want to be like Superman, but when you grow older and older, you don't look at Superman and say, oh my god, I want to be like him. Saving people, constantly not killing anyone while they're trying to kill me, always simping after Lois Lane. Aside from his superpowers, there's nothing Superman has that I want. He's not a character you relate to, he's a character that you're supposed to look up to. One of my favorite movies that explored Superman's character was Superman vs. the Elite, based off the comic, What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Objectively speaking, most people would rather be like the group The Elite than Superman. They do what they do so they can get wealth, fame, and bitches. But that's not why Superman does what he does. He doesn't care about money, he doesn't care about being famous, he doesn't care about any of that stuff. He's just a nice guy, who despite having all the power he has, he still chose to be a good person. More OCs are black, edgy, red vampires. They're not Boy Scouts in blue spandex just trying to do the right thing. I'm sorry, but more people would rather be like fucking Batman, the billionaire playboy, than fucking Superman. Kirito may not have as high of a power level as Superman, but he does get a lot more bitches. Now there's a character I think is a Gary Stu, and most people seem to disagree with me. Jotaro. Like a lot of the JoJo main characters, women are just fawning over him. Now granted, he is a buff guy, but all he is an asshole. To everyone. Even his mom. Remember in part 1 when Jonathan Joestar was fighting that vampire underwater, and he had a choice between drowning or swimming up and getting stabbed? What did he do? He used strategy. He knew the village he was in used to mine coal, so there were pockets of air at the bottom. But what happens when Jotaro is taken into the ocean by a water stand user? How does he get out of this mess? He focuses his energy into the tips of his fingers and pokes the guy to death. Wow, what complex strategy. A lot of people got pissed off at me in my first Mary Sue video when I said I don't think Korra from Legend of Korra is a Mary Sue. Manga Comment talked about this already in his own Mary Sue video, but basically, while Korra could be considered a bit of a Mary Sue in Season 1 or Season 2, she was a lot less of a Mary Sue in Season 3 and 4. She was failing a lot, and Toph straight up said to her, she's the worst avatar ever. A lot of people really hated that Korra's first line was, I'm the avatar, you gotta deal with it! But the writers weren't trying to say, haha, it's a female avatar, I bet you guys haven't seen that before. Are you males triggered yet, now that we have a strong female lead? Because one, there has been female avatars before. It's clear to me that the writers were trying to make Korra the exact opposite of Aang in every way, with Aang saying I never wanted to be the avatar, while Korra's over the moon about being the avatar. So I think a good way to fix a Mary Sue character is to, well, you know, have them stop being a Mary Sue. That's what they did with Korra, and for me it worked. But can a video game character be a Mary Sue? That's certainly a tricky question, don't get me wrong, but to me they're becoming more Mary Sue-ish as time goes on. I remember the good old days when I had to gain the respect of NPCs. Now I just feel like every video game I play, I'm constantly being praised, built up as the greatest hero ever, before I even did anything. Like, for example, let's compare the main character from the Pokemon games to Ash Ketchum. Ash just keeps losing the Pokemon League, over and over again. Meanwhile, Red is defeating the Elite Four, and becoming the greatest trainer in the world after what feels like one Pokemon season. And this gets worse in every game. In Pokemon Sword and Shield, you're basically praised as a great trainer, almost from the very start. The main thing that makes a character a Mary Sue is if they're the center of the universe, and in a video game you're supposed to be the center of the universe. So I understand why so many characters are always constantly giving me praise, but god damn it, it's getting way too bad in recent years. In the tutorial of South Park The Fractured Butthole, they even make fun of this. So anyways, what do you guys think is a Mary Sue character? And what is your definition of a Mary Sue? Tell me in the comments section down below. I might even talk about it in my next Mary Sue video.